Alright, we're recording now, and let's check out the...
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Love Talk Radio.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order. The new world order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
How can I convince you when your ears refuse to hear? You turn your heart away from me each time when I draw near. Your eyes refuse to meet with mine, they glance away in fear.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by, Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
Well, it doesn't show. How can I contain this anguish and this pain? Knowing that your eyes are blinded by the light.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas. Catch the Free American weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger wells inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon out of the sky and drop the sun. Why do I be so old like I'm the only one?
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Like many leaves who thunder in the shadows of the night, they break inside and enter the windows of your mind.
Hang on, the bad part will be over in just a second.
Good morning, Revolution Radio listeners. The sun is rising across this great United States, and that means straight from the heart of Texas. It is time for Clayton Douglas, the Free American. Take it away, Clayton.
All right. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. Made it through another week. And if you were trying to blow me up there, guess what? You got the wrong address, you got the wrong house, and didn't get to kill anybody, so I guess the elite's weekend was a mess. My guest today is Tami Pepperman, and I had the privilege and the pleasure of being on her show last Saturday. Hello, Tami, how are you?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you?
Well, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing really great, but that could be a rumor I started. I just got to. I'm doing overtime today. I'll send you guys the bill. Just I'm doing overtime today. Interviewed a guy from Colorado that's a private investigator and into the whole free marijuana movement up there. Decriminalize it, lose the laws against the victimless crimes. Now, you know, that's one of the things I've been trying to tell people. If there's no corpus delicti, Tammy, is there a crime? If we got no victim, don't we have a right to face our accusers? If we're smoking a little bit of a reefer that God gave us in the privacy of our own home, what business is that of the government? And I've told people probably now for about 45 years, if a man with a badge can walk up to you and say, "What's that you got in your pocket, son? Oh, you're going to do some jail time for that. We're going to put you into the slavery system. We're going to put you into the prison industry. You've just become a part of the prison industry." That ain't a crime, is it? Or am I just you know, a wigged out hippie from the 60s? What's going on? Tell me.
Well, first of all, revenue can only be generated, and such as taxes are collected. So, like the Internal Revenue Service, that doesn't collect taxes; it generates revenue. Well, where does it generate revenue to? The original 13 colonies are owned by Congress. And if you go to the CFR, which is the Code of Federal Regulations, 27 CFR 72.11, and you come on down to the definition of commercial crime, you find any of the following types of crimes, federal or state. Offenses against the revenue laws. What? Well, it's not harm against the human, right? Okay, so let me define them. Burglary, counterfeiting, forgery, kidnapping, larceny, robbery, illegal sale or possession of deadly weapons, prostitution, including soliciting, procuring, pandering, white slaving, keeping house civil, and like offenses, extortion, swindling, and confidence games, which is gambling, and attempting to commit, conspiring to commit, or compounding any of the foregoing crimes. Addiction to narcotic drugs and use of marijuana will be treated as if such were a commercial crime. So basically, when you're violating such laws, you're violating the revenue generation laws. You're actually violating Caesar's money.
Well, the whole now let's go back a little bit. This whole fractional banking crap is a scam too. I mean, Congress can issue the money. You know, it's they can issue the money on our good faith, on our labor, and the IRS and the banking system is taking all this revenue. They are milking the people. We are really nothing more than peons or slaves. They've really farmed out humanity. We're a farm here. Maybe the Jews aren't so far off when they refer to us as cattle, Tammy. And if you stand up and say, wait a minute, you know, wingman's telling me the prison industry is worth $50 billion a year. Yeah, and so was the hemp grown on this land, on this continent, in this country, by our founding fathers, by George Washington. That hemp, they stole $1 billion crop from us, and they've turned it into a slave state. $50 billion a year into the prison industry is nothing more than the legal cover for slavery, isn't it? How much is IBM paying for people, prisoners, to put their boards together?
Tons and tons. The GEO Group is the main prison industrial complex, private prison corporation, handed down by the international prison industry. I mean, this goes further than anybody ever realized, because in 1941, Congress got global governance. They are the New World Order through the Atlantic Charter. Roosevelt and Churchill entered into the Atlantic Charter, giving Congress global governance. And this is what we've been fighting forever, but none of us realized it because we were patriots. We were all patriots to the Constitution, except for Congress, the one who abrogated the Constitution. They were never supposed to charge humans or pledge human beings for anything. Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 and 2 say we're supposed to be on general welfare. Well, how does that occur? Corporations were to be paying taxes. Well, what's the corporation? Go back to the 14th Amendment. Lincoln was a credit reporter for Dun & Bradstreet, working for the Crown, as clergy for the Crown, or the administration at the time, and he's passing the 14th Amendment, which gave corporations life.
Okay, well, wait a minute, Tammy. Wait a minute, dear. You skipped over the 13th Amendment that was stolen from us, and that we fought the War of 1812 on so they could burn the libraries down, so they could lose the 13th Amendment, which pretty much put teeth into the Constitution that forbade taking titles of nobility. So in other words, the 13th Amendment, the real 13th Amendment, that was ratified, made it illegal for anybody with a title esquire or a title of nobility to hold office in the United States. Today, we've got lawyers in Congress, lawyers in the Supreme Court, and lawyers in the White House, although both of our first couple have lost their license to practice law. And frankly, there ain't no license to practice law, is there? I mean, if you've got a lawyer, if you go out and hire a lawyer, that means you're mentally incompetent, doesn't it?
Yes, you're being represented. The strawman is being represented by a strawman at that point in time. But as to the presidency, now, when you take an oath to the Constitution, that's an oath to the Constitution, to uphold that Constitution. You stand on that oath, you are a citizen of whatever created that Constitution, of course. Now, when an attorney takes an oath, they take an oath to the bar. If they lose their bar license, a bar card, or whatever else, that does not take that oath away. They don't take another oath somewhere else. And that's another thing that President Lincoln did. They allowed the Expatriation Act so that the attorneys can expatriate and repatriate under a different government. Now that president, Obama, Lincoln, Clinton, Bush, Roosevelt, Churchill, they are not citizens of the United States of America. They are not citizens of the United States Incorporated. They're citizens of a fictional entity called the BAR, the British Accreditation Registry. And even if they lose their bar license, that doesn't mean anything. They still have that oath. They're still patriots of the bar. Now, every oath that they take after that, they uphold, they swear to uphold the Constitution with a little clause in there, as long as they're a citizen thereof.
Let's see how far back. Let's see how far back this deception comes. The Illuminati was formed by Adam Weishaupt, backed by the banksters, the same year this country was supposedly founded, 1776. Is that accurate?
Yes. And by October 15, 1777, Congress had already gone bankrupt, and they established the Articles of Confederation by which to charge and pledge us to offset that bankruptcy under Article 12.
Now, I tell people we fought the New World Order of their day in 1776. We fought the empire on which the sun never sets, and it was that empire in which the sun never sets that housed the City of London, the banksters called Rothschild, that have been interfering in American history and British history and European history for the last 500 years. Their plan is to finance both sides So they created the Republicans and Democrats here. They created the Tories, you know, whatever. And today, these bankers are doing the same thing. They're dividing and conquering. They're trying to set the blacks against the whites, and they've made it possible to bring the Mexicans in here to make things more difficult for the people here. I mean, we're basically under siege here. Now we got blacks that are gunning for whites because some Jew shot a black kid, a black punk. And we've got this whole amnesty thing going on in Congress. You know, keep your eye on this hand. Keep your eye on this hand. We got this amnesty thing going. And we got 30 million people, illegals here in this country. So Americans can't even get a job. I mean, we're still under war here. And this is all linked. This is all like inextricably linked. The Bar Association fought a war to make it legal for a lawyer to be in Congress. The Bar Association and the Masons are both secret societies that Kennedy spoke out about, and of course they had to kill him. Why are we here, Tami? And we're, my question here, I lead up to this slowly, but I'll just spring it on you so you got time to think about it. I've got some stories here about how by really good writers like Chris Hedges that is talking about locking out the voices of dissent. He says the security and surveillance state, after crushing the Occupy movement and eradicating its encampments, has mounted a relentless and largely clandestine campaign to deny public space to any group or movement that might spawn another popular uprising. You've talked on your show, you talked about how I've been attacked, how I've been demonized, how they've tried to crush me, how they've stopped by anything that I was doing, any publication that I was putting out. And that is escalating now. I've always told people I'm basically, you consider me the canary in the coal mine, because I'm so vocal and so out front and so in your face about it. They don't want me having support. They don't want people listening to this show. I've been barred from so many radio stations out there, supposed patriot stations out there, like Alex Jones, who would never have me on his show because I might, you know, use the J word. But this whole thing with Zimmerman is firing this up again. They are looking for a reason to use those FEMA troops, 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops is what Homeland Security called for 10 years ago. That's happening now, isn't it?
Absolutely, and they called for it in 1947 with the National Security Act. Now remember, at that time we were all still believing we lived in a republic. We didn't live amongst nations, correct?
Yes.
You know, we were in a republic. Well, Dr. Henry Kissinger came into the National Security Council in 1974, and I'll quote something here from a site regarding human husbandry and Dr. Kissinger. April 24, 1974, Dr. Henry Kissinger proposed in his memorandum to the National Security Council that depopulation should be the highest priority of U.S. foreign policy towards the third world. And what people have to realize is that each foreign nation is a corporation or a county, a state. He quoted reasons of national security, and because the U.S. economy will require large and increasing amounts of minerals from abroad, especially from less developed countries. Wherever lessening the population can increase the prospects for such stability, population policy becomes relevant to resources, supplies, and to the economic interests of the United States Incorporated. The targeting agency for the operation is the National Security Council's ad hoc group on population policy. Its its policy planning group is in the United States, the Incorporated State Department's Office of Population Affairs, established in 1975 by Henry Kissinger. Now, this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with national security. This isn't protecting us. We're the United States being, which is relative to state security. Every action that they've taken against you is contrary to state security. Every time they've collected information against you is contrary to state security. And for the betterment of national security,
Right. Let's take this into court now. Let's take the Southern Poverty Law. They got fat pockets. Why can't we take them in court like they tried to do the Aryan nations, like they tried to do with Richard Butler, and what they've done to Edgar Steele? And I still have people trying to call me, telling me how his wife's doing this and he did that and did this. This is all just the ADL. This is the CIA. This is the Mossad, whatever you call it. People are getting worried because of what happened in Boston, Tammy, that we're under martial law, that they're going to declare martial law. I keep telling people, you don't have to worry about martial law, man. You're under it now. If you live in a city like Boston or like Houston or like Dallas, you're in a martial law encampment. And martial law, by the way, folks, is defined as when the military government engages in the suspension of ordinary law. And the term martial law is thrown around quite a bit these days, and the elements of martial law often get lost in the conversation. Government critics maintain that this administration is merely looking for an excuse to put the country into a total state of martial law and begin to act upon their various enemies of the states list, and ultimately suspend the Constitution. Dave Hodges says, I got news for the more global, conservative Glenn Beck type of fence sitters. Martial law is already here, and most of the worst elements of martial law have been put into place and are awaiting a catalyst. Zimmerman comes to mind. Go ahead, Tammy.
Absolutely. The war we're under is actually, it's considered and defined as low-intensity conflict. Low-intensity conflict is the use of military forces applied selectively and with restraint to enforce compliance with the policies or objectives of the political body controlling the military force. The term can be used to describe conflicts where at least one or both of the opposing parties along such lines. Low-intensity conflict is a military term for the deployment and use of troops or assets in situations other than war.
In case, now hold on just a moment. Hold on just a moment. I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting over 10 years ago at Sandia Labs after they had rolled FEMA and Border Patrol and everything into Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, DHS. Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement in Miami. I got it on tape. Yes, we're in for a long war. This war will go on longer than the Cold War. Our enemy's weak. Our enemy doesn't have planes, it doesn't have trains, it doesn't have bombs, so they're going to use unconventional means. And we have to be prepared for anything in case of atomic attack, a natural disaster of significant magnitude like along the New Madrid fault line, or a single outbreak of a disease like smallpox. Now, why would he pick a disease that's been extinct in America for 100 years, except for a couple of little biochemical laboratories where they saved it, and maybe they kept a few Indian blankets. And he says, you know, they ask him, are you talking about National Guard? No. In case of a single outbreak of smallpox, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. In other words, some of us won't line up on the Walmart parking lot to get our vaccines that they're advertising right now. Now, I've tried to tell people that video, True Face of FEMA, is available up at shopfreeamerican.com. I just sent a copy out. The packaging is not that professional, but the presentation is. You can hear it in their own words of what he's saying. And where are they going to get 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops? They got them, they're training them in your police departments right now.
Well, I grew up in a family of patriots, and I can tell you from experience that the well-armed troops come from within. My daddy was a Vietnam veteran. He gave his life to the Constitution, defending the Constitution. And when push came to shove, I hadn't spoken to him for 3 years before he passed away, because he hated me for not paying taxes, or going against Congress, for doing what I do. And he was turned against me by corporate policy.
Divide and conquer, Tammy. This is what they did. They turned my family against me. Oh, he may never be right again after that accident. You need to get guardianship. You need to make sure he takes his medication. If I'd taken that medication, I would have been a brain-dead vegetable.
I know. And this tool, this political tool, is called winning hearts and minds. And I'll read the definition. Winning hearts and minds is a concept occasionally expressed in a resolution of war, insurgency, and other conflicts, in which one side seeks to prevail not by the use of superior force, but by the making of emotional or intellectual appeals to sway supporters to the other side. Political indoctrination. My dad was a patriot. I was a patriot all of my life because I watched my dad. He had Agent Orange and everything else that came along from defending the Constitution. He went over there as a tunnel rat, and as you know, he came back home and he was spit on by what he thought were supporters of peace and everything else. These were all engineered. That was engineered. The welcome home that you got was engineered by your own government. You came home, and this is the most upsetting thing for me to witness, is all of these soldiers that are coming home from the military. They're required to file their DD-214 when they get here at the county recorder's office. That means that you're a piece of property. When you went overseas, you were no longer a citizen. You were fighting as a military force. And when you came home, they designated you a piece of property so they could cash in on your estate again and raise you again.
One of the likely, let me just stop you for a second, because I volunteered for Vietnam in 1964. I was 17 years old. I wanted to fight for this country. I wanted to fight for the Constitution. I took that oath and I read it. And if I didn't go, they tried to kill me before I got there. I volunteered for our OCS, Officers Candidate School, and I was turned down because I scored too high on their test. I was pretty stunned about that, but I said I wouldn't follow orders and I wouldn't salute anymore from my hospital bed, talking to a chaplain. So they got me out 7 days before all of my veterans benefits came due. Honorable discharge under medical conditions. And they were killing people left and right. This spinal meningitis came straight from the vaccines, which I had a few weeks before. And I came back. I didn't go to Vietnam, but God help you if you insult a Vietnam vet, an Iraqi vet, or an Afghanistan vet in front of me. I will take your ass down. You know, our soldiers are followed orders, man. That's what they're trained to do. Our police are following orders. That's what they're trained to do. And there's only one thing that's going to save us, I believe, and that's the education, what you're doing, what I'm doing here, what Revolution Radio is doing. What if they gave a war and no one came? I got hold of this started, and this whole paraphernalia industry started selling peace symbols during Vietnam. So, and what we started there, I said we were smoking pot, we were listening to Steppenwolf, we were having a great time fighting this revolution, fighting this, I published an underground newspaper at the time, and nothing's changed. We're in the same war. We just don't know as much as we knew then. We're dumber than our parents. They've dumbed us down, haven't they?
And this is thanks to your movement. Yes, this is the Hitler youth camps that we're putting our kids into. College school system, which is the Hitler youth camp, or being taught and indoctrinated to be patriots to the system, to corporate policy. Law enforcement are enforcing code. They're not enforcing any laws. They're enforcing corporate policy. And all of this time we've been on our own. So as this goes along, and especially with those of us who have been terrorized by this system, you do lose all of your family. You do lose all of your former friends. And this is what Jesus warned us about. But we're not a curse for the average American sheeple. They don't know where to go. They're suffering from cognitive dissonance. They're like, this can't happen in my country. Well, they just witnessed it. But they're taught not to believe what they're actually witnessing, thanks to patriotism. And it's so hard to overcome.
The piece,
this is why we're having...
The piece I'm putting out now, it goes even further, because I'm talking about all the problems, and I've got a little article in there included from Benjamin Friedman, who was a Jewish historian that was right at the top level, sitting in the same office with Churchill and Roosevelt. He says Christians have been duped by the unholiest hoax in all of history, by the so-called Jews. This is considered their most effective weapon. This big lie technique is brainwashing American Christians into believing that Jesus Christ was the king of the Jews, in the sense that so-called Jews today call themselves Jews. And folks, that's what we're talking about, 18th century. There weren't no Jews down there. There were Edomites. There were a lot of other things. And they've hid this because the alleged kinship comes from the myth that their common ancestry with the so-called Jews of the Holy Land in the Old Testament history. That's a fiction based on fable. So for the last 200 years, and I believe Cornwallis even warned Washington about the Jewish religion would take over America in 200 years and we'd still be a colony of England. Has that happened, Tami? I mean, there's a couple of things I'm really not sure about. I can't tell you if the government took over the mafia or if the mafia took over the government. I can't tell you if the government controls the press or if the press controls the government.
Well, those words have been so perverted. You know, you have such as, during the 1920s when Hoover and all of them were dancing around, and you had Wilson and Roosevelt and all of those, they were implementing the Federal Bureau of Investigation by false flagging people, such as Capone. They could never get him on murder charges. Eventually, they got him on mail fraud in order to get him into prison. Then, of course, everybody knows he got syphilis and everything else. How
much time did Meyer Lansky get? Wasn't he right there pulling Al Capone's strings? How much time did he get?
I don't even remember, but it was all of them back then.
None.
Nelson, they said he was robbing banks. He wasn't robbing any banks. They took him out because he was going through the Boys Town International. He was a victim of sexual abuse at the hands of legislators in the White House, and they had to take him out because he was going to reveal what they were doing to him. And these children, these are our babies, and what they were doing was implementing the ability of the FBI, the ability of the CIA, in order to control the populace, put us into fear so that we relied on them more. But those criminals, Bonnie and Clyde, all of that, those were revenue laws. They were violating revenue laws. Once again, they were not harming human beings. They were vilified, and we were put into fear so that we would rely on the state. We would rely on our daddy. And this is how it's been done over and over and over again since Moses.
Yeah, let's see, I'm almost moved to a musical interlude here. You know, and Jesse James was an outlaw, man. He was always breaking the law. 6 guns flying from both in his hands, fast as I ever saw. You know, he was fighting the banks. And this battle has been going on since this country was founded. Since Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel, he was a banker's man. We've been in this trying to, we've been deceived. You know, they're trying to get you to believe that Jews are the chosen people when it's they don't even come from the Holy Land. And this is all part of the divide and conquer. And this information that I'm putting in this next article comes from a Jew, a Jewish historian. And all of everything that I've ever said on this show about the so-called Jews, I put it on my book, that they are the Jews that say they're Jews but are not. I think this has been our biggest problem. And they're going around and by the name of Hagee, or you know, one of these television evangelists, send us the money. My God, we're being programmed right, even by our churches. And I'll bet if you go look at your church, if you got a big church here, I bet if you look at the cornerstone of your church, you'll see the Masonic label. And of course, if you look at the map of Washington, D.C., you see the Masonic label, don't you?
And what did Jesus say about that? He said everybody who's under that sword will be crushed to death when they're revealed. And that was another person that stood up. In 1917, Charles Lindbergh stood up against J.P. Morgan. At that time, it was still a law firm.
That's right.
At that time, J.P. Morgan was still a law firm. And what did they do to Lindbergh's son? They slaughtered his son to shut him up.
Yes.
You know,
by the way, I have another little question for you. How did Lindbergh cross the Atlantic? Where did Lindbergh get the fuel to cross the Atlantic in that Piper Cub? We had the technology. We had the technology to fly a plane across an ocean a century ago.
Absolutely.
Now that's all national security. That's all national security. Paul Pantone was just on my show. I was there when Paul Pantone created the GEAT carburetor. And he was attacked. He was put in an insane asylum, attacked by the courts. He wouldn't sign over his patents, and he's got patents on it. And he's not allowed to tell you can run water through this carburetor. It's the system we got now. It's against the law. It's against national security. That's why we don't have any Tesla machines. That's why we don't have any magnetic generators. That they build stackable magnetic generators in Australia. Why don't we have those here? They're building, they have created a system of consumer slaves, economic consumer slaves. And to me, Tammy, the only answer here, I mean, I've been reporting on this whole New World Order takeover for 25 years, step here, step here, step here. And if the only answer I've come up with is grow your own food, generate your own electricity, put a windmill up on your house and a well in the backyard and a garden in the backyard, and you don't need the government, you don't need the trucks, you don't need the gasoline. You can run that diesel truck on biodiesel and get your fuel from McDonald's. I mean, the ways are there. I've researched this and done the stories over this for 20 years. They had the technology to make this a paradise 100 years ago. Why don't we have that paradise?
To squeeze a lot. We have the technology to squeeze a rock so hard that we can make it sing. They're using this in the industrial coil, you know, to generate earthquakes and things like that underground. The USGS has been studying this for years. We have that technology. We also have the technology to make oil. We know exactly what temperature it needs to be at. We know exactly the composition of the...
Well, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. What's the most plentiful material on Earth?
Hemp.
No, not quite. That's a good one. That's certainly in the cards here. But your most plentiful element is water. What is water? It's H2O. That means we actually have the ability, and it's practical, to convert the engines in our ships so that they run on the water they're floating on. But, whoa, we'd lose all that jet fuel, we'd lose all that diesel, we'd lose all those sails. They've built this whole society up for consumers, to make you into consumers and to consume everything that you can possibly produce. And gas, and if you're growing your, what would you rather do? Would you rather go to work a little bit and plant a garden in your backyard? That's a little bit of work. Takes a little bit of work. Or would you rather pay the charges for diesel to ship all your fruits and vegetables in from Mexico? Which one?
Well, we need to take their control over everything. And when you mentioned the 13th Amendment earlier, that stipulated that they were not supposed to commercialize on such as water. No municipality was to maintain revenue streams based on control of the water. Now, the biggest and most abhorrent thing that Congress has done is not only control of the water as you know it, but control of the water as the geographical state knows it. And when these communities are built, when each municipality is built, the Corps of Engineers comes in and engineers each municipality so that the water runs down only into their coffers. It only runs into their reservoirs. Now, there was a man this last year...
Okay, let me hold it just a second. Hold it just a second, because in Colorado and Oregon, I believe, it's against the law to catch the rain coming off of your roof because somebody bought that reservoir down the street.
Yes, and that's what's going on. And there was an Oregon man that was convicted of collecting rainwater on his own property. He was given a 30-day sentence last year because he had his own reservoirs and he was collecting rainwater. And these are the things that we have to stand up against. That is not our water. They're claiming it based on our consent because the sheeple are not dissenting. They're not standing up in unison as one and dissenting.
Now,
and this is all that's
now, Tami, it's getting a little bit more serious now. And I need to really make people, some doctors are coming out and saying that they really are poisoning us with nano-aluminum. The nano-aluminum is going right straight to your brain. It's the cause of Alzheimer's. It's the cause of dementia. And they're putting it in our atmosphere. Nobody's forced it down. I can take you to where the planes are. I've been there. They wouldn't let me on the airfield. But I know where they're fueling the planes. Right down there in Tucson, airport just north of Tucson. You can see them lined up. I pulled them up on Google Earth. And you know, why isn't anybody ever forced one of these planes down? Now they got signs up on Mount Rainier and Mount Shasta. Don't eat the white snow, because of the concentration of aluminum.
And everybody needs to realize that they can chelate aluminum, and they can do that with bentonite clay. Everybody needs to start detoxing from all of these things that have been implicated against us. This is the FDA at work. They have the contract with the Ethics Commission to use us as human test products, test subjects, and everybody needs to step away. And Jesus said this, you've been eating things that you're not supposed to be eating, you know, come Revelation. You need to really look at what you're consuming.
What I intend to do here, and Revolution Radio is an absolute integral part of it, and probably the integral part of it. Because all of the hosts, like you, like Heisenberg and all this, they divide and conquer. Clay's talking about the Jews, Clay's talking about the Clay, you know, this is what they do. We've got to put all that aside and understand that we're free Americans, standing together. I don't want to do what you do. You don't have to do what I do. I may not like digging in the garden. You may love it. You know, what I deal with is the words. I'm a reporter, I'm a publisher, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I intend to keep doing that. Now that, Revolution is taking over the computerized part. This is, I've like ran into a brick wall here. Because I don't know enough about the computer systems to do this or to do that, or to put a sign up, to put sign up for our newsletter, sign up for this, sign up for that. And over the attacks, I lost all of my list, all of the names and everything after a number of computers were EMP'd. It takes a while to recuperate a lot of that. Now, I've got a lot of that. And what's really blowing me away is all of the answers are right up there on the internet, right up there. What I talked about 20 years ago, people started doing 15 years ago, and they've got farms and ranches and people working together. And they're growing their own food. A couple in Pasadena, California, were growing 6,000 pounds of food out of their backyard. That's happening right now. Right now. This ain't dreaming. This ain't, my whole plan is basically, we carve this neighborhood out of farmland. We live here now. Let's take it back to farmland. What can you do to help this? This is a freedom movement, and this is worldwide. It's not just America now. I'd like to think that Americans are capable of setting the example. That Americans are saying, hey, you know what? We ain't going to be divided no more. We're going to work together. He's a mechanic. I don't know shit about mechanics. I don't know which way to turn a wrench, you know. So he's going to fix my cars for me, but I'm going to do his flyers, and I'm going to do his, I'm going to do this. Now, revolution is the answer. This is the key to it. You're able to listen to the show because somebody that wants to sell you food don't want you growing it yourself. They want to sell you their processed food because our process is better than their process. And also, go ahead, Tammy. Yes.
That is the lawmerchant that we were warned about. In the land of Babylon, Babylonian theory is the use of language, culture, and religious constructs to drive us against each other, to pit us and polarize us against each other, so that we never see what they're doing. And we kill each other at their behest, although they have clean hands under clean hands doctrine. Now, what everybody has to do is get back into community, get back into exactly like you're saying with the Liberty Villages. However, everybody has to make sure that they stand on this and support each other because we've watched this for years.
This is why, Tammy, I'm inviting you right now. I'm inviting you right now to handle the some of the legal questions and the legal technicalities that pop up. I want this to be a co-op. Co-ops work for hundreds of years. This is everybody in a town, in a village, on a block working together for the co-op. For the co-op. So everything, whatever I get something for, as a group. I mean, we're talking about wholesale here. So we buy together. We put our money together and we buy. So you place an order and pick it up once a week. And you get it straight from the farmer, so you know how it's grown. You get it if we're buying sugar or oil or you know, whatever staples that we need. You're a member of the co-op, you get it at cost plus 10. And what we're going to provide, what I'm going to provide here, are the links. And you can do this right now. You can go see the garden that they turned their backyard into in Pasadena. We'll have the videos up here. We'll have the instructions up here. You may, you know, somebody may want to sell you, I think, to build a magnetic generator. I think they want $50 for that information. Here it is. Go look at it. Tell me if it works. If it works, come back to the co-op. We'll all do that. This is communicating. This is working together, and we've got the structure right now, Tami. My friend Sheriff Richard Mack, the man that fought the Brady Bill, has started the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. They got over 300 county sheriffs that are on our side. If you got a constitutional sheriff, you just go up to him, you introduce yourself, say we're part of the co-op, we're part of the militia, we're here for you. If you need any help, don't bring the feds in. Call us. Here's the local number. We've got the information network now. We've got the information network here. Go ahead.
What we're dealing with is that each sheriff, since the inception of these laws, each sheriff is actually sitting on all of the sureties. Okay, the attorney buys the surety from the sheriff, and the sheriff is not realistic of what's going on. But the surety is the natural person, and what we have to stop is the attorney's involvement, the FBI's involvement, the CIA's involvement in any law enforcement capacity. Any law enforcement.
Well, that's what we've got to deal with in every city right now. The fusion centers, that sprung out of Senate Bill 1959, Tami. Homegrown terrorists, and they were aimed at people like me, and they started the fusion centers for that. That's basically federal control of local law enforcement. They haven't been too successful with the sheriffs, but they got the police chiefs in their pocket.
Yes, usually what's going on is that I've been watching them the last few years, especially ramp it up, and now they're implementing FBI agents as the police captains, as the police chiefs, and they're moving them right out of the FBI to control the police. In the case that we took on in Indiana, for example, when I was trying to and attempting to communicate with the sheriff, I was blown off by local law enforcement that had usurped the sheriff capacity and was telling me that they walk around with the sheriff's stamp. So here's a sheriff's signature on this document that was put out on law enforcement. So here's the sheriff on the position, and the attorney for this was in the position.
Just one, I want to be on. Shut up, guys. Shut up. Sorry about that. A knock at the door, and the wolf pack went nuts. Nobody sneaks up on me, but what the heck was that?
Watchtower.
Watchtower?
Yeah.
Watchtower people, okay. I'm doing a secular radio show right now. They can't come in. I'm sorry, Tami. Tami, well, look, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of people put out good information. Irwin Schiff and Vultures in Eagles Clothing, Lynn Meredith, they put out information about the IRS, and they're trying to tell people the IRS is a Federal Reserve collection agency. not even headquartered here. And people would ask me, well, is she right, Clang? Well, yeah, she's right. But it's a little like going up to Al Capone and saying, hey, Al, I found out extortion is not legal. I don't have to pay you on this no more. Get out of my hair. And when you get out of the hospital with the broken legs, you know, maybe you pay that fee. I mean, this is what we're facing now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if people do not stand in the community, what happens is racial justice again. No. He was standing up. He was actually walking as Jesus. He wasn't claiming to be Jesus. He was walking as Jesus. He was walking as God. He was developing a community. And the people believe what they were told by the television programming. And this is what we have to combat. We have to realize and examine relativity rather than believing the consensus reality. And that's exactly what's going on. Joseph Goebbels was Hitler's propaganda minister. He said if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. That is what consensus reality is. That is what all of the sheeple are living under by maintaining television programming.
Well, alright, we'll be right back with Tami here. They don't call it programming for nothing, folks. We'll be right back with Tami Pepperman. Check out the chat room.
You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
What is out of work or scared of losing their jobs? Dollar by the nickel's worth. Going bust Chelsea, the cheaper gun under the tongue. Clowns are running wild in the streets and nobody anywhere seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We know things are bad, worse than bad. I want you to get mad. I want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write your congressmen because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime and the peace. All I know is first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say it. I was human being. My life has nothing.
Yo! Be here Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and hear us in Jason Redwood. It's time to crush. It's time to Jason. Rebels Radio, freedomsbusters.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. This is Tom.
Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs, government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Now you can share the topics that drive the discussions of your favorite talk shows with TalkStream Live's topic-driven talk radio. List and promote real-time talk radio topics, or post the topics that you want to hear. Hot topics are tweeted and retweeted, and include simple click-to-listen audio links. The future of talk radio is topic-driven talk radio. Available now at TalkStreamLive.com.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos. The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drinking so into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and they can bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Get it?
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
All right.
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right. Now, folks, Tammy just sent me something, and it backs up what I'm trying to tell you. It's called Civil Disobedience by David Henry Thoreau. He says, I heartily accept the motto, the government is best, not government's least. I should like to see it acted up and more rapidly and systematically carried out. It finally amounts to this, which I also believe, the government is best, which governs not at all. When men are prepared for it, that will be the kind of government they will have. That's kind of where we need to go right now. We need to make our homes secure, our homes profitable, so we're not just renting it from a landlord. Let's put our skills to use. I mean, this is the way this country was formed. And this is 1859 that Henry Thoreau wrote that. In that same time period, up into the 19th century, we've had some of the greatest minds in world history, like Nikola Tesla, that gave us, we've had the ability to do this for well over 100 years. We've had the ability to be self-sufficient. We've and the greatest minds on the planet have talked about that. I've interviewed a lot of them. This is an eternal battle. This is and the enemy simply, if they want to take something that is yours, if they want to live off of your work, they're parasites. And they might be the Republican next door, it might be the Democrat next door. This guy might be a liberal, and might be the greatest, kindest person you ever met. But you've been conditioned to believe that you're a conservative. Somehow we have to rearrange our thinking. And we got the Bill of Rights, which is probably more important than the Constitution. Tammy, I'm just one man. Now, I feel like when I watch what's happening around and watch the news, and watch the things that I talked about and was accused of being an anti-government conspiracy theorist for are now mainstream news. Turns out they were true after all. What do we do as one man? I mean, I think I'm making a difference, and I think that this whole cooperating to strengthen and rebuild your neighborhood, bring in the Special Forces guy to tell us how they organize the villages in Vietnam. Actually, we should probably bring in the North Vietnamese to tell us how they kicked our ass over there. Go ahead, Tami. Where do we go here? Where do we go here?
That's basically what they did. During Nazi Germany, the eugenics program, they moved all of the psychiatrists, all of the psychologists in that administration right back over here to our administration to indoctrinate our children in the Hitler Youth camps. Now, this, even though we're one person, I'm also one person. I'm very simple. I'm very casual. I'm not a social butterfly or whatever. We just indicted Congress and Senate based on the simple fact that each judge is a bank. The definition of bank out of Black's Law Dictionary, first edition, is number one, a bench or seat. The bench or tribunal occupied by the judges, the seat of judgment, a court. Okay, so, for example, a child is preyed on by a pedophile. That pedophile is charged by the bank for rent on that child. That is what you're seeing in the media. When somebody gets charged for pedophilia, the bank charges the perpetrator rent on that child. There will be catch and release. That predator will get right back out again and go away and prey on another child, and the bank will charge him again and again and again and again. And they're generating revenue off of us. We're this place. This is the bank doing this to us. They have an oath that they take to Congress to discharge congressional bankruptcy under 28 U.S.C. 453. First of all, everybody needs to hold them accountable. They are not lawful. They are not lawful. And throughout my walk, out of everything that I've been doing, the most common phrase that I come up against, that brick wall, is they tell me, all these people tell me, they're the ones with the guns. And I look at them like, you can't imagine my anger. It's like speaking Greek to somebody and they don't understand what you're saying. They don't have the guns. They have the patriotism, and we are the guns. We are their military, based on patriotism. Stop patronizing this thing. Hold it accountable. Hold it accountable. We are their guns. We volunteer to go to war for them. We volunteer to uphold their security and have no clue that it doesn't come down to human security. It comes down to national security, corporate policy. We need to walk away from that and get into communities and realize we need to protect each other. We have an obligation to protect humanity to each other. And that's what Jesus was pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. He says, what are you doing going to court with each other? What are you doing calling something else your father? What are you doing? Everybody needs to back up and stop patronizing this thing. This is Caesar. That was the metaphor. Caesar, the taker of all things. Caesar. It seizes. Now, it is obligated to us to render under Caesar what is Caesar's. What is Caesar's? Caesar needs his ass handed back to him. That is all he has. Give him his ass. Hand it to him on a silver platter. Stop bowing down to it. Stop patronizing it.
Now, one of the supposed patriots here. Let me bring this up. Because, I helped start the militias, and I told people if there's more than 10 people in the militia, one of them is from the government trying to set you up. We just had a so-called patriot that called for a march across into Washington, D.C., into a gun-free zone with a bunch of patriots. Wanted to take a few 100,000 people with him. It would have been walking into a massacre. And
Absolutely.
And of course he just had also announced that he was Jewish and proud of it. Maybe that was just a coincidence, or maybe it had nothing to do with his being dumb as hell or trying to set up American patriots for another Waco or something like that.
Absolutely, and it's the same thing that Alex Jones has done. You know, in 2009, okay, I had brothers and sisters behind me. I had people with me that were fighting this system. And in 2009, they started slaughtering us left and right. In 2009, they got George Van Conn, my brother, a psychologist down at the University of Georgia. They said that he offed his ex-wife and a friend of hers and went up into the Georgia mountains, buried himself, and then shot himself in the head. Okay, the sheeple believed it, so this was allowed to occur. A year later, here they come around and they off Nancy Schaefer, former U.S. Senator who does the report to Congress regarding the corruption of child protection. Now, at that time, we were trying to get garner media experience, so here we are communicating with the likes of Alex Jones. Nancy was scheduled to go on his show a week after she was murdered to out Plano, Texas, child sex trafficking ring, including Rick Perry, who's traded on Dun & Bradstreet as the general counsel and also the Department of Health and Human Services. That's his function. His function is to be a predator, to be a pedophile, to prey on children. This is the sex trafficking ring through Child Protective Services. Now, once Nancy was murdered, he was given...
Excuse me, let me just stop you for a second. This pedophilia, George Bush has been accused of it. This is the way they control them. See, if you ever go against us, if you ever reveal your secrets that you swore to keep in that coffin, we'll release your file. That's your hold. That's blackmail, and that's part of the what's happening right now with the telephones. I mean, I always operate that every phone I use is tapped, but now everybody knows their phones are tapped. So all you got to do is make a suggestion and or say something that's just out of left field or something, and you can be recorded. That can be pulled back and used against you the same way it was in Edgar Steele's trial.
Absolutely.
And it's been done in the Zimmerman trial. It's been done in the Zimmerman trial too.
Right. But the whole thing was that Alex Jones was given all of our research, and all of a sudden, Nancy Schaefer was murdered. I'm attempted on within a month on May 18th. That's what I was talking to you about on Saturday. Well, then we go around to August. Bill Bowen did the documentary called Innocence Destroyed. Alex Jones had his research. Bill Bowen was off. Jeff Tepolo was off August 30th. And that's when I was finally driven underground. But Alex Jones never went on to report about the child sex trafficking ring in Plano, Texas. He never reported on Innocence Destroyed. He never took our research and did a damn thing with it. And he appears as an agent for the system. This is what he's evidenced by his works and actions. And he's so detrimental to everybody because that's the action of cognitive dissonance. He's got so many followers. He's got all these sheeple followers.
And they think he walks on water because, you know, he doesn't talk about the Jews. He doesn't talk about the Zionists. He doesn't talk about the Christian Zionists. He doesn't put down the mainstream religions that are doing nothing but raising fund for Israel. And you know, it was that Hola hoax that really destroyed our whole Christian foundations here.
Absolutely, but he's standing up as a false flag. You know, Now he's maintaining that he's one of us. He's one and two. He's a male. Look at how violent he is. That's a presentation that he's presenting to the sheeple. And so as the American citizen or sheeple views this individual, they're believing that he's one of us. He needs to step down from his position and get away from humanity. You know, this is what the implication of false flags do. It creates a new illusion for the sheeple to believe, when in reality all he is an agent.
Well, when they never invited me on NBC, although the ADL and Southern Poverty Law gave me a lot of credit for starting the militias, you know, and advertising for them. And but we're in a war of ideals, and Alex Jones got a lot of Jewish advertisers, and a lot of, again, these pseudo patriots, these people that are just here to profit off you being afraid. Now, I don't want anybody to be afraid, and I didn't start the militias to go out and overthrow the government. I didn't start it to be an armed march. I promoted it in the governor's office and in the sheriff's department, and still to this day we have meetings in sheriff's offices for the militia here in Texas. What part of the Second Amendment don't you understand? But because I'm an individual, because they don't have any control over what I say, over the advertising here, I am demonized and slandered and vilified. Even the whole idea for Liberty Villages was taken on a couple of years back by Southern Poverty Law to try to make me sound like an egomaniac, because I see you turn your neighborhood into something productive, not destructive. You know, I asked a friend of ours, you know, what the problem we got, how do we fight evil without becoming evil? And her response was, don't fight. Don't fight. That's what they want you to do. They want to lure you into a war. They want to lure you a battle. You're a conservative. I'm a liberal. You're a Republican. I'm a Democrat. You're white. I'm black. How do we get around that? The only way I know of is education. But if you can hear Alex Jones on your AM radio, and you can't hear Clay Douglas, the only place you can hear is on Revolution Radio with no commercials, what do we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, and that's something that's most important. All of our listeners know that Revolution Radio is a listener-supported radio station. It is non-commercial. Now, the media owns everything. The mainstream media owns everything. So our listeners need to first support our venue. If you like what you're hearing, please donate to freedomslips.com. Go to freedomslips.com and donate to us. Donate to us. Keep us on the air. Make us huge. This is up to our listeners to do this. Join together, gather in this community, and be the voice. Don't let our voice be detracted from or obliterated or sucked into the mainstream media. Hawk does not commercialize our things. And so the first step is to create that community. And part of that is creating our venue right here on Revolution Radio.
Now, folks, I want you to keep I would like for you to keep something in mind here. I've been doing this for a long time ago. 20 years ago, I broadcast with Bill Cooper on Worldwide Christian Radio, WWCR. We were all over the world. The Free American was in every Barnes & Noble and every Books A Million. They got rid of that. They stopped that by everything almost up to murder. And they did shoot people. We had, I had one guy that came and said, Clay, I want to help you get Free American started again. cool, Casey, buy me breakfast, man. I'll be down in the morning. By the time I got there, they shot him coming out of Safeway with my breakfast. This is a war we are in. And,
Absolutely.
you know, but I'm trying to do this without becoming evil, without resorting to their tactics, without putting anybody else in jeopardy. And the way I intend to do that is, look, you're sovereign. You're a person. God put you on this earth. The Constitution, your founding fathers gave you this Bill of Rights. We don't need any real complicated theology. We don't need a Koran. You know, I suggest you keep the Bible as a reference book and a history book. But but you know, I suggest you read the Talmud too, so to understand what we're up against. I've told people, Tammy, don't believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. You know, confirm what I got to say.
Read the Bible by yourself.
Yes.
Read the Bible by yourself, because, you know, the priests have perverted God's word, which is Scripture, that is actually the walk of God, and described it, and they've written about it. But the actual walk of God, that's what Jesus was saying. You know not the Scripture of God. That is the actual walk. To describe it, superscribe it, subscribe it, inscribe it, whatever, is to alter it and alter its course. Read the Bible yourself.
You know, I tell people when I walk out that front door there, I'm in church. It's my church, man. God made this for me. And that's all the religion I need. I don't need a translator. Jesus didn't need a translator. He told us what he felt about scribes and Pharisees. And Jesus also told you folks that you can do what I do and more. Now, that sounds to me like he's telling us that God's inside us. He ain't over in that church. He ain't, that rabbi don't have an exclusive on God's word. And we've got a lot of men that have tried to tell us the truth. I read a lot, and I think all of the research has been done. All the information is done. Now, how do we put that to use? Part of it is the education. We got Timothy Bible School and the Little Red Schoolhouse. Got all the lessons. You can graduate there. You can get your degree there, and you don't have to support this college scam, which is a scam, I think. What do you think? Am I wrong on that? I mean, they're simply putting you in debt. They're putting you in debt for something you can go to the internet and get.
Absolutely, and it goes beyond that. In 1802, through the Acts of Enablement, you know, the Northwest Passage and those treaties were actually a way to raise RACE, the human populace. So Congress came in, pretending to be the church, and they said, we'd like to donate tracts of land, 200,000 acres apiece, to each college. And the sheeple agreed. Now, first of all, Congress, the church, never had any land until that moment in time. You gave it to them by consent. You gave them your bodies by consent. Under the bankruptcy, everybody's held as prisoners of war under the 1929 Geneva Convention, so your body is owned. And everybody's patronizing that defunct government that was never a government in the first place. Congress came in and created the United States of America, which is a style. That's a chain of events or actions of Congress with the 1777 Articles of Confederation, and pledged you and I to offset their bankruptcy. Now, what did Jesus say? In 1 Corinthians 6, he says, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Meats for the belly and belly for the meat, but God shall destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God has both raised up the Lord, and will also raise us up by his own power. Now you have a house of refuge representatives, a house of representatives, a house of delegates. You have delegated your authority, God. You need to realize who you are. You have never been forsaken. Jesus in Latin means your earth. You weren't left there on the cross by God. That's you. What had happened is they convinced you that you are not God, that you are something else entitled, an individual.
I have put it, Tami, I have put it that at the Council of Nicaea, they promoted Jesus to God because they didn't want men like me striving to be the kind of man he was when he walked this earth.
Absolutely, and that's what people need to understand. Jesus was saying, call no man your father, except that which is your father, not even Christ. Now, Clayton, you're my father. I've learned from you, and as I learn from you, iron on iron, you are creating me. You are creating me. You are creating the children.
I feel that very strongly as I read the news every day, and I read the news from all over the world, folks. I don't just get it from CNN. I read all points of view. It's important that we do that so we have the knowledge here. Now, there's a lot of people who don't have the time to devote like I do, or the desire to know. I just want to know. And I want us to be safe and free. Now, they don't want that. They want you to be a good slave. How can we do this? How can we make these people compliant? Part of it's drugs. They drug us, don't they?
Absolutely, soma theory, and we're drugged with all of our foods. If you go to your pantry right now, or your refrigerator right now, and look at any condiment, such as ketchup or mustard or anything else, you'll find that there's sodium, calcium, and potassium benzoate in those products. When you ingest something like that, sodium benzoate, the minute it starts to metabolize, that is benzodiazepine, which is Valium and Xanax. You're drugging yourself by consuming their products rather than maintaining your own way, growing your own food, preserving your own food.
Well, nobody has the time. Nobody. Now, when I tried to come up with Liberty Villages, the original concept for that was do it on the farm and ranch. You know, you can't run a farm and a ranch efficiently by yourself, so bring in some veterans, put up some teepees, do something, put up a cabin, let them sleep in their campers, you know, but work together. Work together, work together. And that's what I'm saying about the bringing the country into the city. Just convert this yard that you got into something productive. Grow the food. Convert that garage into being able to make something. Be productive. Now, it's I think it's a simple concept here. What do you think?
It is. It's just being. We're not humans thinking. We're not humans considering. We're human beings. And being human, we already have charity. We already have love for each other. The psychopath doesn't feel anything. An attorney, all they do is count things. That is an alien to us, a foreign entity to the human being. They have no human emotion, no human compassion, and absolutely no empathy.
All right, now what you're describing here is the internet. What you're describing is the internet. We've got communication. We can transmit ideas, but we're also being isolated, and they're depending on what they want you to hear. That's what you're getting bombarded with. Internet being created by DARPA. So
the last time I was around my biological family, my mother, my father, siblings, was over 3 years ago now. But the last time, they're not able to turn off the television because the minute they turn it off, they feel alone. What they're doing is they're watching television programming, and there's all these communities on the television programming And they feel like they're surrounded by a bunch of entities or a whole community, such as these soap operas or sitcoms. People are not able to turn off that television because the minute they do, they realize how secular they've been made. They realize how alone they are. They're no longer surrounded by that thing, so they turn it right back on. And the people need to back away from television programming, turn it off, and enter back into the community. Talk to your neighbor. Most people don't even know their neighbor's names anymore. They don't go out and visit. They don't go, and that's the design of politics. Poly comes from Greek, it means many. Kratos stems from Greek, it means to control or possess. Politics means controlling and possessing many.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here, but now there in the neighborhood, I can't believe how many times I've said, you know, I lived in Miami for 8 years. I only knew 2 neighbors. Now, what I'm suggesting here, I'll do the work for you. If Nighthawk can run the websites, can handle the broadcasting here, we'll get this information out 24 hours a day through all the hosts. And the only thing that we're setting up, and this is what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this for almost 10 years, the database. I got to control the database. People got to be able to sign up here, and they got to pay something. You can't get nothing for free. But a $50 a year joining fee will cover all of the expenses for setting up the websites. One of the websites we got, it will have a classified page on it. So whatever you do, if you're a mechanic, put the ad in there. Whatever town you're in, we'll section it by town, by areas, and we will build the counties. That's, to me, the county, and you go right to the sheriff. Say, hey, I'm with this co-op here. We're buying all of our food at wholesale plus 10. We're helping the farmers in our county, Sheriff. All the farmers in our county, we're going to give them a complimentary membership this year. And we got that. And Wingman, that's my opinion about antidepressants. You're a fool if you take anything from the pharmaceutical company. You're a fool if you're starting to from the CIA. And if you want to shoot up heroin, just go over to that corner over there. There's a deep ditch over there. We can put a body in.
Well, and we also need to realize what depression is. That word stems from depressed, pressed down upon. And so when you feel you're being oppressed, pressed down upon, you need to remove the pressure. And removing the pressure is entering back into communities, self-governing, getting away from the force that's pressing down upon you. All of these statutes mean a statute. That word means statement of compulsion. That means you're being pulled around. You're being pulled around psychologically by something else. You're being moved around, and this is the depressive force that you're feeling. Reacting to that by doping up is not the best idea. You need to remove the pressure and indict them, hold them accountable for what they're doing upon you. Get back into the community.
Now, do you what kind of connections do you have here? Do you have, is your organization or among your friends, would you be able to or interested in taking on the Southern Poverty Law and the ADL, see if we can get some of that money back out of their pockets to refire up the whole hip movement, to refire up the whole patriot movement, to fire up the self-sufficient family farm. We got a lot of things going here. There's a lot of good things here. We don't want to take antidepressants. We got people on the show or on this network that tell you about the vaccines that you get. I mean, what do you need to know, folks?
Well, last year when we took on the Southern Poverty Law Center, we went through the local law enforcement agency because that's who was directing law enforcement to kill one of my clients. And at the time, when we came in and we notified law enforcement of the actions of the Southern Poverty Law Center, they were made aware of this and they started moving towards indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center. However, the individual that was going towards that, what they did was they traumatized him. So this law enforcement agent, Davila, they came in and this is so, I mean, the whole thing is screwed up, and you know how they attempted on you. You know their actions and their behaviors. When we went up and we communicated with this officer, this law enforcement officer, Davila, they said that his brother was canoeing down a hillside, and he hit a tree and broke his neck and killed himself. So at that time, Davila was put into shock and oxygen use, and that was stopped at that point in time. But I was sure as heck that it was from the Power Law Center, because that is who's after us. They're holding you, for example, in criminal coercion. That's what they're doing by continuing on. They have no lawful authority, they have no legal authority to do that. This is domestic terrorism. They are terrorizing you and holding you in contempt for a crime you have not committed. This is espionage under 18 U.S.C. 794.
If I'm a part of this co-op, again, I want to put this information out there. I don't want to charge by each bit of information. Some people they got books out. If I recommend the books, get the books. I got books. I recommend you get my books. You know, that's how we can keep doing this. And this about if the Southern Poverty Law already came after me 2 years ago from Liberty Village. Did you get that that link that I sent you?
I did. I don't want to forget. I've been through a lot of stuff. We still have been through the tips of helping to these actors.
And I still want to help. Now, to do that, folks, we need you supporting Revolution Radio. We need you signing up for, all you got to do is send me an email. Send me an email. I'm not looking for any money right now. Soon I will. Soon I want $50 when I open up the information on the website to you. You know, still cost you a little bit. If you want a classified ad, it'll probably be like 10 or 20 bucks. Or one mountain hour. What do you think about that currency? Now I'll have this next week. I'll have maybe this week. I'm not sure here. I'll have the creators of Ithaca Hours and Mile High Money or Mile High Hours. And we're talking about local currencies here. I would like to incorporate that into our whole network here. It's pretty money. They got really pretty money here, so. And we'll have all.
And the sheeple are used to the act. They're used to the presentation. They're used to Caesar's face being on the dollar bill. And most aren't realizing about trading and bartering. They're scared to death to trade and barter. What do I have that's advantageous for somebody else? Well, you like doing something that I don't like doing. You like growing something that I cannot grow. Or you have you can trade. I've traded my services for habanero peppers. I've traded my services for venison and moose and eel and all sorts of things. Rock salt. I love pickling things. I love doing other things. I've traded my services for cherries. I've traded my eggs for other services. I've traded my chickens for other services. Everybody needs to get back to actuality and reality. These are things that we require.
Well, we've lost that. One of the courses, or some of the courses that we're going to have in Timothy Bible College. I'm saying bring your kids out of Columbine, bring them out of Sandy Hook, put them in your house, sit them down in front of the computer for a couple hours a day, and teach them. Let them pass you know, go all the way up into college. And while they're working on your place, and what all we got to do, we got the technology, folks. All it takes is us working together. You got a shop in your garage there, put together some of this solar film onto some frames here, and help me get it up on the roof. You know, hey, I'll give you, you know, 20 hours for that. We got a method of doing this, and we've got all the education here. I mean, it's somebody's got to read through it all and go through it all, and we've got all of the hosts on here that are pulling off the information. So here's your news channel right here, folks. This and the Free American and the Revolution Radio. You're getting access. Through Revolution, you click on my little banner there, and you can go to my site, and you'll get tremendous information. I mean, I study everything from ancient aliens, ancient civilizations, to history, the history of Christianity, Judaism, Muslims, or whatever. You know, we do the research, and there's coming on this show, we've got hundreds every year of some of the most brilliant men around the world. I reach all around the world. And you got Tami that you're listening to. It's part of this Revolution Radio here. This is why we need your support. We need to get together. And we got all the research here. They've already done the work for you. They just don't want you to know that it's really possible to make this move. To make this, it's a change of thought, isn't it, Tami? It's a change of the way you think. What can I do to be productive? I get up every morning. What can I do? What can I do to make things better?
And that's part of getting rid of the depression. Now, when you're patronizing Congress and other things, there's a middleman in there. Jesus said, "You have shut the kingdom of heaven." That's how they shut it up. There's a middleman in there taking an 80% cut. Congress is taking an 80% cut and detracting from local communities. Stop Congress from being involved in your life and my life in the education of your children. First of all, that's the prime, the most important thing. Because even if we facilitate the revelation right now, Jesus warned us that it will happen again in another 1,000 years. Stop it from happening again in another 1,000 years. You have to be educating your own children. You do not give them up to somebody else. You're delivering them up to Satan by putting them in public schools. These are Hitler youth camps. They are being taught patriotism to another father rather than you, the father. Two parts make a whole. The female and the male are the fathers. This is who is creating life. Every day I'm being created by you. I learn as I go along. We all do. We are human beings. This is all.
Well, you know, Tami, I do have certain conclusions that I've come to that don't exactly fit in with mainstream. You know, for instance, I believe God's alive and well on the internet. And I've said, if you're an omnipotent being, you're the only one of your kind in the universe, what are you? And the answer always pops up, God. Yeah, but you'd have to be bored to tears, you know, wouldn't you? If you couldn't look from our eyes and watch the results of what we do, you'd be bored to tears. We provide God's entertainment. We provide God's intrigue. And we're just born in this world. We got free will. That's God's gift to us. And that's what allows people to be evil. That's what allows for evil to be used against you. And you kind of have to learn to recognize what it is. You know, devil's a good con man, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. And we have a question from Wingman. Tami and Clayton, what are your opinions on the emergence of thought crimes and arrests based on it? Now, under 27 CFR Code of Federal Regulations 72.11, thought crimes are crimes against the revenue laws as well. And so, for example, when you see your brother being charged with conspiracy to commit, that means he was thinking about it, and they don't have any evidence that he's actually committed a crime against any human being. Don't allow these things. When you see these things occur, show up at the courthouse with your brother. Gather in groups. And I'm not talking about like one or two, I'm talking about like 100.
Well, that is what we're talking about doing here, is doing a database. We can cross-reference it. We can do it under ACT, just a couple $100 for the ACT program. It'll separate it by zip code, by state, so we can target zip codes with these flyers about the Liberty Village concept, all working together. A co-op. I mean, come on, folks. They haven't demonized the word co-op yet, like they did militia, like they did anti-government, like they did tax resistors. You know, they haven't done that yet. But they're going to. They're going to try. They're going to try. This is what they do. They're going to find a fault with whatever you do. We're going to have to come in there and inspect that tomato, you know, before you can give it to your neighbor.
And you don't want anything that's USDA approved. You don't want anything through the FDA. The FDA and Ethics Commission have contracts with each other to kill you based on your food bag, feed bag, that the FDA hands out to you. The food pyramid is your food bag. That thing is just like any other farm animal. It says what you require, your daily intake, recommended daily allowance. This makes you a better product for now.
Could you care to comment on Codex Alimentarius? That's what another one of the things you're trying to put on with this, just like the sustainable development and all that.
Absolutely, and that's the most horrifying and the most beautiful at the same time. In Revelation, when the Lamb is able to open the book, then his wrath is made known. Codex Alimentarius means big book. Big book. Everybody is under code, which are words in a book, and statutes, which are statements of compulsions. You can go to your state laws, quote laws, and you'll find titles and chapters or parts of the book. Now, when you realize what's written in these books, then you are pissed off enough, and you realize that you are being human trafficked by law. You are pissed off enough to hold it accountable. This is you, God, holding the Lord God accountable for being a landlord, for using you as farm animals, for using you and I, for using our children. They're pimping us out by court process. When my rights are reserved over yours, within feminism, for example.
Is it just a coincidence that the Jewish, the Zionists out there, some of the Jews out there consider us to be goy or cattle?
Absolutely, and those are the false Jews. This is Congress. They're human trafficking. They're treating us like captives. Capit means head. Capital is a profit derived off of the human head. Capitalism is a tool to do that. Zionism is the tool to redistribute Islam. Islamism is the tool to redistribute Zion. Catholicism redistributes Judaism. Judaism redistributes Catholicism. Feminism redistributes masculinism. Masculinism redistributes feminism. Because once my rights are reserved over yours, your rights are stolen by action of law, and you have to buy your rights back by court process.
So the answer, the only answer I can see is we just need to come out of her, as Jesus told us, and become individuals once more with all of those rights, all of the Bill of Rights, all of the God-given rights, and we have to get to do that. We have the right to do anything we want as far as herbs, as growing our food. We can grow our own food. We can grow our own herbs. We can make our own alcohol. without the government stepping in. You know, what do you do, neighbor? What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. I see sitting around a campfire in the middle of the neighborhood, you know, in the middle of the street, beer at a campfire, sit around that one or two nights, change over from neighbor to neighbor, see what they're doing, see how they're making it. Oh, look, George just set up a fish farm. George just set up aquaponics over there on his club. Let's go over there and see what he's doing. Let's go see how it works.
Hitler called them informants, and now they call it hotlining. So an informant can call CPS, an informant can call 911, an informant can call Adult Protective Services. This is informing. Stop informing on each other. Inform. It puts you into form. Just like endure means to be put into law. Stop doing this to each other.
See, the propaganda is all aimed to you. See something, say something. You know, report on what your neighbor's doing. Is he doing something suspicious? Was he looking in his trunk too long? That's what the fusion centers have done.
Too many visitors? Is he having too many visitors? He must be a drug dealer. You know, drugs, when you're consuming drugs, you're violating the revenue laws. You're taking away from Caesar. So when you are charged with a drug offense, Caesar is charging you for taking away from his revenue. A cartel means little charter. Little charter. The drug cartels are contracts between the major drug dealers and the CIA. The major drug dealers and local law enforcement. The major drug dealers in Congress. The major drug dealers in Senate. The major drug dealers in these politicians.
No, you just mentioned George. You just mentioned George Bush, Bill Clinton, and of course Barack Obama. Nothing's changed. More drugs coming in. We know his drug of choice. So we actually know more about Barack Obama than we ever did George Bush. Thanks, Larry Sinclair and a few others.
He was the greatest mouthpiece ever. I mean, George Bush, he stood up there as an idiot, and he presented to the world that he was some stupid guy, and he's one of the smartest because he owns human hostages. Your Congress, your Senate members do not live in the United States Incorporated. They live in the Bahamas. They live elsewhere outside of the United States. They live in Costa Rica, which is a territory of the United States Incorporated. You know, I interviewed that Judge Naidu. He's the king of Borneo and a federal judge here in the United States Incorporated. Now, everybody needs to realize they are not citizens. They have allegiance to the Bar Association. Get them out of your community. Come out of her. Stop asking it to represent you. There is no taxation without representation, remember? If you don't require their services anymore, there's no contract there. It is up to us to self-govern.
That's
and the
right.
time is now, because otherwise we're just walking right
what I've talked about, and everything I've talked about on this show, the farming your backyard, putting down wood chips instead of plowing the land, retaining the moisture, they don't blow away. You know, all of this knowledge, and even the knowledge to make magnetic generators or windmills. Seen some beautiful windmills the other day. You can rig a unit that'll charge your batteries up. You know, using an old alternator. Oh, you might have to kick the neighborhood association out. I mean, I did have some people talk about the neighborhood association. Well, get with the neighbors. If you stop talking, if you stop being independent here, and so independent you can't talk to nobody, Yeah, that's we may be our own worst enemy that way. You know, us patriots. We don't need nobody. We don't want nobody. We don't want to be here. You know, we don't want to know you. That's a mistake. That's a mistake on our parts. And again, my tip of my hat to Bear, who said, "How do we fight evil without becoming evil? Don't fight. Don't fight. Produce. Be productive. Come up with ideas that work. Share the ideas." And this is what we're doing on Revolution. This is what we're doing at the Free American. This is what we're doing at libertyvillages.org, libertyvillagescoop.org. That'll be up to register everybody and handle it. And I ain't touching it. I'm just doing I'm going to do the flyers that we can send to everybody in your zip code. And we'll see how many people react. How many people out there haven't already been beaten down, haven't already been made brain dead. You know, they want you to think that they've got more power than they do. And if they had the power they want you to believe they have, we'd still be under the Roman Empire. We got the numbers. God must have loved the common people. They made so many of us.
And the Lord God said, "Be fruitful and multiply." It was beginning at that time. It told us to go out and breed for it. Woman and man. Here we are. We're just breeders for it. Rather than doing that, everybody needs to be as one. Stop producing for that thing, as we have an obligation to each other. Produce for yourself, produce for your family, produce for your community. Don't allow that middleman to shut up the kingdom of God and any longer.
That's right. I've tried to do that most of my life. I'm going to do it even better this part. All right, we're almost out of time. Go to shop.freeamerican.com. You can make a donation there, or you can order a PDF of one of my books. You can order the regular book. You'll get that too. Hard copy, you get them signed. It's all at shop.freeamerican.com. You can go to freeamerican.com and you can hear the interview that Annie and I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, you can hear Annie too. I think I recorded that too. But Tami did a wonderful show with me the other day. That was really a pleasure. I do so much interviewing, Tami, that it was kind of interesting just to be asked questions and to be able to respond that way.
It was my pleasure. I had such a wonderful experience on Saturday. Thank you for being here.
Well, we've got a method here. We've got a way to go. And all it takes is you now. We got the research, we got the ideas, we've got the websites going up, and we got a team. We got a team. It's not just Clay Douglas. That's what they did to me, Tami. They isolated me somehow. I didn't have somebody I could talk to like you. I didn't have somebody putting the station together like Mike. I didn't have Richard managing the show and bringing you on. I thank you all. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now the only thing we need is you. Make a donation. Chip in. Be productive. Send me an email. Clay@freeamerican.com. Tami, thanks again.
Thank you. Be well.
Be well. I thought I heard music, Richard. Did I hear music? Free American.
I still haven't heard it yet, Clayton. Keep talking. I'll message Hawk here to see if he's got it going on.
Okay. I can always play my music,
Well, you could, yeah.
Yeah, see
you.
you.
Kind of threw me off guard here. I'm using myself, I was ready to sign off, and all of a sudden, okay, no. Okay, there goes Tammy.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order. The new world order does not mean surrendering our...
Yes, ma'am. That would be wonderful. I'm comfortable, don't mess with me.
He's holding me down here. Wouldn't take much today. Hold me down.